that there's certainly a need for for more talking. I mean, that's pretty obvious from anybody that's paying any attention to what's going on in the world. Just a little bit of talking might go a long way. Also, as I was saying earlier, if we really take a deep breath and take a step back, we have a lot more things in common than we realize, and maybe we, if we can work on those common things together that benefit all of us, rather than the things that make us different and divide us, keep us from progressing in things that will benefit everybody.
This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, executive chef at Snackbar and author of I Am From Here, Stories and Recipes from the South, Chef Vishwesh Bhatt. My man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Man, I'm feeling great. It's a Friday evening. It's awesome.
Psyched to have you here, and I want to give a special shout out to Robert St. John. This guy has been hooking me up throughout Mississippi, telling me everyone I have to talk to beyond Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, Florida, the Panhandle. He just opened up his world to me, and just special thanks to him.
Man, he's got a big world, and he's one gem of a human being.
He really is. He's so generous, and I'm super excited to be here. He had amazing things to say about you. I can't wait to dive into your story and to find out how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra.
That's a tough one to start with. But I think the mantra is respect. Respect for yourself, respect for what you do, and respect for the people who come in to admire and appreciate what you do.
Why is respect so important?
I think everything sort of revolves around it, right? In this day and age when the world is so divided because we refuse to listen and respect each other's points of view, I think if we start with that, if we start with respecting ourselves and respecting the work we do, I think that goes a long way towards making us better people.
Awesome way. I have nothing to add to that. Awesome way to get this thing started. Do you know that one of your ear sets is turned around? The left.
Hi. No wonder I couldn't hear.
It's all right. I just saw that side of your head, so let me help you.
Hey. There. It's like, I wonder I couldn't hear from that ear.
We got to figure it out.
Hey. Now I can hear.
Yeah, loud and clear. It's way better that way, huh? So where does it make sense to start sharing your story? Take me to the beginning.
I don't know. I mean, the beginning of my restaurant journey, starts here in Oxford. So maybe that's where it makes sense. Early 90s.
Okay. So I know you immigrated from India.
I did.
You landed in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
And you weren't studying food until later.
No. I didn't study food until I started working in restaurants. I mean, I started working in restaurants like most people do, out of sort of necessity.
Okay.
And restaurants are probably the only industry that will hire anybody, regardless of your background or skill level or what have you. So started in the restaurant simply because that's where I could get a job. It was a job that would suit my habits at the time and my schedule that I used to keep. And
right. So speaking of your background, biology and public administration.
Right. And I have an undergraduate degree in political science. Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like Wikipedia isn't completely wrong, right? Because this is where I got all of my information. So, right. So at what point did you start developing this love for food?
I mean, the love for food was always there from the very, very beginning, from childhood, because food was always the thing that brought really happy memories, right? It was memories of families getting together. It's memories of celebrations. It's memories of special occasions, if you will. Spending time with my mother and my grandmother in their kitchens, all that stuff. I mean, sitting down or going to the market with my dad. I mean, that all those things, or my uncles taking me when I was little to eat some street food or take me to eat ice cream. So food was always those were the best memories.
It's interesting because I think that as a society we look at food, we've distilled it down to something as simple as a commodity or a good, right? And when you look at all other animals, because we are animals at the end of the day, their entire existence revolves around food.
Right, and so does ours.
And when they evolve to be able to, like everything, their anatomy is formed to be able to get food. Think of an anteater or like a woodpecker, right? Like their evolution is directly tied to their ability to get food and survive.
Right.
But when you think about humans, we don't think about that, especially. You know what I'm saying?
And which is, I do in a sense, but it's also kind of, strange that we have such a developed brain, and yet we don't realize how important food and where it comes from is.
We're so detached from it.
Right.
We just take it for granted.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the sad part. And I think we take it more for granted in places like the U.S. where it's so abundant, right? Where we haven't had to work for it. Right. And that's why, you have a generation of people that, thinks orange juice comes in a plastic bottle. They just don't know that orange juice comes from an orange which grows on a tree somewhere.
Right. I think it's really important, and the reason why I bring this up is because everyone that I interview, when I say take us to the beginning, it almost always starts back to memories with family and loved ones.
Absolutely.
And when we're younger, I think it's something different. Like maybe we're not aware of it in the moment, but when we look back, when we reflect back, it's transformative. Like it's a transformative experience.
Yeah, and that, and possibly because when you were younger, you had to depend on somebody else to get food, right? You had to depend on mom or dad or whoever it was to go shopping for you or to feed you. And I think as you get older and you get more independent and, you start thinking about other things that you have to do, then food becomes secondary. And that's, it's a sad thing.
Yeah. And I think one of my hopes, a byproduct of this podcast, is to help people reconnect and realize that food is literally everything.
Yes.
It is literally everything, and it's all connected, and to reconnect people with that. And so thank you for sharing the importance of food to you from a very early age. But it sounds like your first business was when you were in college, because you were cooking for people, for friends and colleagues, right? You had kind of a side hustle.
Yes. And again, that was, I realized, what happened was, I started cooking in my apartment. Out of necessity, because cooking in the apartment was cheaper than going out to eat. I had very limited money, and I wanted to spend as much of it on beer and booze. So if I didn't go out to eat, then $5 would go a long way buying groceries, and I could make a big pot of spaghetti or cook so many packs of ramen noodle, and then I was like, well. Just by itself, it's pretty boring. But I had grown up in a household where spices were liberally used, and so I started doing things like, well, what about if I add some flavors to this? What do you know?
This isn't while you're in Oxford getting your master's.
Well, this is before that. This was in Lexington, the University of Kentucky. I was still an undergrad, and so I would cook, pretty regularly, and then so my housemate was like, if you're cooking, why don't you cook for me? And I said, what's the difference to me? I'm,
units of work, right? You got to go through the motions.
Anyway, so, and so that turned into, for cooking for two of us, and then some friends would come over and cooking for a larger group. Then at one point it turned into a group of, on every other weekend, a group of, 15 or 20 friends, but of course I couldn't buy groceries for them. So then it became like, you guys bring stuff, I will cook it.
Okay.
And so it became more or less for them a challenge. Like, what can we find that's really strange that we can get him to cook?
Yeah. So essentially it was a dinner party.
Yes.
Like an informal.
Informal dinner party. Absolutely. Yeah.
A dinner party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you making money? Were you charging people? Or just covering costs?
No. This was all, just, I was cooking anyway, and friends were coming over, and we would get together, and we would eat. But then of course there'll be drinks and music, and party would ensue. But as this
I wish we were friends in college.
Yes. But as this carried on, 2 semesters in, one of our friends brought their advisor, their thesis advisor to dinner. And, as students, when that's somebody that's important, right? I mean, it's like, ooh, you're bringing a professor to this.
Right.
All of a sudden, the dynamics changes. So I had to, well, okay, I can't just throw together something. I'll do a little bit, put a little more effort. I'll, read a couple of recipes. And so that I did, and, made it a little more formal, at least, got proper plates instead of just getting, that kind of stuff. Had some, had to go borrow silverware for some folks and set a table. But that professor really enjoyed dinner, and he said, hey, would you mind doing this kind of a dinner in 2 weeks for my wife's birthday? It'll be about 10 of us. I really like these flavors.
What kind of flavors were you cooking at this point?
It was a mishmash of things. I mean, it wasn't really anything authentic, but I liked spices. And so it was kind of all over the place. I mean, there was certainly Indian influence, but, I liked Caribbean food, and I liked Middle Eastern food, and so it was just sort of thrown together, but with maybe a little bit of background knowledge of what spices did,
right?
Versus
not to date you. Sorry, I don't want to cut you short. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just saying, I did have, because I had grown up watching my mom cook, I at least had some basic notion of what spices went with what.
Got it. And not to date you, but you came here in 1985.
Yes.
You were 17 years old. So
Yep.
I'm assuming at this point we're in the early 90s, late 80s?
Early 90s, or it was like 89, 88, 89.
In the deep south.
In Kentucky, yeah, but yes.
Yeah. So at this point, like, these flavors that you're using are probably strange to a lot of people. I mean, were these flavors popular in that area?
I mean, they were not unpopular, but also, remember, I was cooking for, friends and other students who also, some were international students, some weren't. So, it was a mixed group of folks. I mean, some people had never had these things. I certainly had, but also, but again, I hadn't had the combinations of things I was making before either. So it was, it was new to all of us.
Gotcha. So, at this point in your life, what's your vision for yourself? What are you thinking? Where are you going to end up?
Like all college students, all young people at that age, I had this vision of I was going to change the world. I was going to make the world a better place. I was going, there was going to be. Just remember, this is we're still talking Cold War here, and the world is sort of bipolar, and there's good and there's bad, and it's like, well, no, there isn't. There has to be some sort of a compromise between how each of us thinks, and so that was the mindset. The mindset was to make the world a better place, make the environment safer for everybody. I mean, just I was a dreamer.
Yeah, I think you are making the world a better place. Restaurant owners do that. You know what I mean? One guest at a time, one employee at a time.
Sure.
But so you end up going to public administration. What did you want to do specifically?
I wanted to be a bureaucrat. So, again, part of that is growing up in India. I grew up in India, which, as many people know, has a huge bureaucracy that, has its benefits, but also has its, hurdles. And
what are the benefits?
The benefits is, are that things are run. Right. I mean, you have people doing jobs that, but what has become, with any big bureaucracy, what happens is then people get entrenched in their jobs, and they start becoming gatekeepers instead of people who are supposed to take care of things.
What do you mean by entrenched?
Say you are, you are the secretary to somebody, to some minister. And people who want to see the minister have to go through you. And so that becomes a position of power. So rather than becoming a facilitator
of change,
or service, you become the person who is now using that position you have to leverage it for your own personal benefits rather than doing the job.
So that's one of the cons of a bureaucracy. But
right.
The pro is that things get done.
Right.
Because there's usually one mission and everything is, aligned, even if it's being kind of dictated.
Correct. And I mean, not just being dictated, but also because in a perfect world, in a perfect bureaucracy, every department has a job, right? I mean, it's like, hey, you are the the roads and footpath division. Your job is to make sure all the roads and footpaths are in this town are the way they're supposed to be. And et cetera, whatever it is.
So coming from that to a democracy.
Yeah. Well, India is a democracy. It was a democracy, so that wasn't big change for me. Like you vote for people, and then you expect them to do the job, and you hold them accountable. I mean, that was not something that was a concept that was new to me.
Okay. So you graduate. So we're kind of jumping ahead because you went to school originally for biology, and that's when you were in Kentucky.
Right.
This is when you started doing your dinner parties just to kind of
Right.
socialize and to feed people, and it wasn't serious, but it was fun at this time.
Yes.
You graduate, you find yourself, I'm guessing like 1992-ish, if I'm just doing it based off of 4 years undergraduate, 2 years master's.
Yes.
So you find yourself at the University of Mississippi.
Correct.
What's going on then?
I came here to study public administration. I mean, I came here partly because my parents were here. My dad was a professor at Ole Miss. Partly because I had a lot of fun my last year and a half at Kentucky, and so my grades weren't where they were when I started off as a student, and so I had to, come to a place that would accept somebody with the grades I had.
What was the worst GPA you had?
Well, let's not talk about that.
If I share mine, will you share yours? I had a 1.16 my first semester.
Yeah, no, it never got that low, but suffice to say that
I'm trying to make you look good.
Yeah, thanks. Suffice to say, it was my GPA finally led me to flip burgers. So
So eventually, take us to the point where things started to shift, where you go from I'm going to change the world with democracy and getting involved in public administration to a world of food. When did that switch happen?
Well, I mean, a couple of things happened. One, the political world that I had studied changed, right? The Berlin Wall came down, and all of a sudden, this whole, the way we had been taught things, that there's the West and there's the East, and this is how the world order works. That world order was no longer there. So a lot of the stuff we had studied was sort of not
crumbling. So the change you wanted to see in the world was going away.
Right.
It was changing.
It was changing. It was, and we were all hopeful that this was, happening for the best. And for many people it was. But so the systems that we had studied changed. That was one thing. The other thing that was going on is the U.S. emerged, as sort of the de facto only superpower.
Yeah.
And so the way it was acting was very different now, right? I mean, the checks and balances, if you will, were no longer there. And so we were in the new world of how we were going to act. And so I was watching all that, and then I got an externship at a place. It was a if you want to call it a think tank, and I'm not going to name it, but and they did lobbying and public policy stuff. And I went and spent a summer there, and all I did the entire summer was, if you remember those old school manila envelopes with little, blocks with people's names in it, you go from Department A to Department B. I mean, I basically shuffled that envelope around for 3 months, and nothing was getting done. And sort of, that's when it hit me that this was not the way to make anything happen.
So you had this yellow or manila envelope with the little metal clippy things, right?
Yeah.
And what was in this envelope?
Some memo, for example. Different memos of, things that needed to get done, or whatever policy that whoever was working on, and it went from one department to the other department to it just went in circles.
So were you was this memo trying to get something done, or is this multiple different memos that you're just
moving? No, so there were different ones, but the idea was the same, right? Here's let's just make something up, right? We need to make sweet tea. And then you would take that thing to go to the department that has the water, and then they sign off on the water. And then you go to the department that has the tea, and then they sign off on it. And then you got to take it to the person who's got the sugar, and they sign off on it. And by the time you did all that, there was no need for sweet tea anymore. Just to kind of tell you how that worked.
So this is what your job was at the time.
Right.
Is this what you're saying? You were just moving the message.
Yes.
Okay. And this is one of the reasons, and I want to eventually get to the world of food. But I love to get to know my guests and to talk. And it's really, at the end of the day, this interview is about you and who's behind the restaurant.
Sure.
So I'm really just trying to figure out your values and what drives you, and that's really the goal here. But you're making me think of one of the reasons why I find myself being a very moderate person down the middle is because as somebody whose life mission statement is to change the world. So in that part of me, like I literally want to see change.
Yes.
And I am a liberal in that sense.
Right.
But at the same time, to the point you just pointed out, the reason why I hate the idea of government getting involved is that it takes forever for anything to ever get done.
Right.
So it's just like if we could rely on culture, if we could change the culture of a society and we had a shared culture, shared values, how much faster could things get done without having to create policy around everything? Sure.
I mean, and it's something, a good friend of mine, I don't know if you're into him, John Kearns, has said something where,
tomorrow.
Right. So it's something, very, very poignant. I mean, our politics, okay, fine. You want to be right wing, fine. You want to be left wing, fine. Whatever. But we all have kids that go to school. Wouldn't it be better if our schools were better for everybody?
Right.
Right. I mean, if our teachers got paid. I mean, it's not a left issue or a right issue.
It's a we issue.
It's a we issue.
Yeah.
And there are so many other issues like that. Would it be nice if all the roads we drove on were taken care of with our tax money that we all pay?
Is that a sensitive subject in Mississippi? As somebody who's been driving across the state, it's a little rocky out there.
No. I mean, it's just how we, it's like there are so many things that we can cooperate on, right?
Yeah.
And yet we just kind of find the things that we don't get along on and just keep harping on that. And that's the,
So, bring me to the point where, we kind of pointed out the world's changing. You're leaning away from this world of focusing on becoming a politician or public administration. You find yourself in a kitchen out of necessity to make money.
Right.
At what point? Take me to the point where you say to yourself, "I might want to do this for the rest of my life."
It took me about a year, little over a year, working in a kitchen. Okay. And there were several. One, I enjoyed it. Two, I was, to my surprise, pretty decent at it. And three, I fell in with the right group of folks. And that again, whether it's karma or it was just we were in this town, all of us sort of with similar backgrounds. Everybody in that kitchen had been in college. Everybody in that kitchen had done something else, or had wanted to do something else. But here we were in the kitchen, and it became a place where, we would talk about things. We would all listen to the radio in the morning or the news, or people were reading the newspaper still. There was still this. We were coming in to work, but talking about current events, and having discussions.
Like-minded individuals.
Yeah. And some of us were on one side of an issue, someone on the other, but we were still able to have hey, let's talk about this.
Where did that ever go?
Yeah, I know. What happened? You can have a healthy argument on an issue, and people can share ideas. Yeah. I don't know what happened to that.
Oh, I think I know what happened. Do you really want to go down that rabbit hole?
I don't.
I'll just social media. I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Echo chambers.
Right.
But to be clear, this place that you're talking about is
the kitchen at City Grocery.
Okay. Yeah. Which is in this plaza that we're sitting today.
It's not. It's actually just about a third of a mile. Just
did I pass it on my way here? Is it not?
It's on the square. So we're
okay.
It's just about a third of a mile south of here.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So you're in this kitchen. You're working with like-minded people.
Yep.
You're being seen, I'm assuming, for something that you're good at because you're aware that you're good at it. Do people tell you and reinforce that you're good at it?
No. I deduced I was good at it because after a year I still had a job.
Okay. Well, would you say good at? You said actually your exact words were decent at it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I still don't think I'm good at it because I've seen other people who
James Beard Best Chef 2019.
Yeah, no. I mean, but I watch other people, and see what they can do, and I know what I can do, and it's like, oh, I can't do that yet.
It's funny that you say that. Did I cut you short? Keep going.
No, that's it.
Because people often tell me that I need to start teaching more of what I learn, and I feel like I don't know anything after 1,000+ interviews with leading restaurateurs.
Right.
but it's because I surround myself with people like you.
Well,
And relative to you, I just feel like, like and all these other people that are out there, these successful restaurateurs, I just feel like there's so much to learn. But I think with food, it's probably similar to that.
yeah, I mean, and you always, I mean, if you stop learning, then what's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say decent at it, are you saying just your ability to like pair flavors, or is it like, what does it mean to be a decent cook or a decent chef?
To make things taste good. Also, in the restaurant world, to keep up with sort of the pace and the demands of what's required. To be able to understand what's needed at a particular station at a particular time, things like that. I could see more than one things. I mean, I could be picking parsley, but I can kind of keep an eye on the pot of beans that's simmering and know when to turn it down or add more liquid to it. I mean, those were the kind of inherent things that, again, I had picked up somewhere, right? My best guess is by hanging around my mother in the kitchen when she's trying to cook 4, 5, 6 dishes and moving things around and trying to keep me out of the way and still making sure there's supper on the table for however many people are coming to dinner that night. So while I wasn't actively participating in it, just being around, I can only imagine that I was absorbing some of it.
Got it. Now's a good time to take a break, thank our sponsors. When we come back, I want to talk about when you decide to go full in on culinary.
Yep.
We have to interrupt today's episode to let you know that every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Restaurant Systems Pro CEO Fred Langley is going live to teach you everything you need to know to run a profitable restaurant from soup to nuts. All you gotta do is click the link below. We're back, and take me to this point where you say to yourself, I think I might do this for the rest of my life.
Yes, I mean, so that light bulb went off. I think I'd been in the kitchen at City Grocery for, at that point, about a year and a half or so. About a year and a half. And I was really enjoying it, and I'd really gotten into it and kind of gotten in the swing of things. But I realized that while I knew the dishes we cooked in that kitchen, I really had no knowledge of the history or the techniques and where this food came from or where these recipes came from, other than these are recipes that John learned in New Orleans. But I also knew that it was a bistro. That City Grocery was a bistro, and there was certainly some French Creole influence, and so I was like, I don't know anything about Western food. I don't know anything really other than what I eat and make here. I know very little, and so if I'm going to do this for a living, I should learn a little bit more. And so how do I learn more? Well, you can go work somewhere else, in different places, or I guess the simple answer was, well, I can go to cooking school. And so I decided to go to cooking school. But I wasn't going to just go anywhere. I looked at the map of where I could go. And I mean, I narrowed it down. Okay, well, CIA is a really good cooking school. Well, their campus is in Hyde Park, New York. Oh, it snows in the winter. I'm not going there.
Yeah, it's expensive up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Miami was not any cheaper. But then I looked at, okay, so what's my second option? Second option was the French Culinary Institute in New York City. No, I can't live in New York City. It's, again, winter. I don't do that.
Yeah.
Then it came down to Johnson & Wales. And Johnson & Wales was like, okay, Providence, Rhode Island. Oh, this is not looking good at all.
Cold.
But then there's this campus they have in Miami. Aha. Well, what else is in Miami? Well, this is a time in Miami when Norman Van Aken and Alan Susser and Johnny Vincennes and these guys were blowing up and doing this food, this sort of Florida Floridian, whatever you want to call it. That was all the rage, and it's like, and I followed those guys and had the cookbook and would watch them on Great Chefs, and just this was before all the big TV boom happened. So like, okay, I'll go there, and it's Miami, so it'll be warm.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going there. Also, the one big benefit of going there was that particular campus offered an accelerated program. Because I had a college degree. I can do just culinary school, just the cooking classes for a year, instead of having to take the math and the to get an associate's degree. You would have to take other.
So
but I didn't have to do all that.
I
have to do.
Right.
So
beautiful. Hindsight being 2020, do you think that you still would have gone to culinary school, or would you have worked in the industry at different restaurants?
I would have worked in industry at different restaurants.
Why?
Because I would have been exposed to different types of cuisines and different chefs and different temperaments. I mean, I had a great time, and I met some really lovely people, and it's a great network of friends we have.
Bingo. I think. Sorry, but keep going in that train of thought. I'll say.
Yeah. So that was very important. Of course, for somebody like me who enjoyed cooking, but didn't know all sort of the basic fundamentals. It was a good place to start. To go after I had worked in a restaurant to kind of learn a little bit. But in this day and age, I mean, with what things cost, I think the best learning would happen if you actually, worked with 3 or 4 different folks and 3 or 4 different places.
You can see if you're good, if you're decent at it, like you said, and you have the ability to learn and keep up, like your skill can take you anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And it can teach you. You can learn so much.
Yes.
I will say that the way you did it is the way I would recommend somebody do it if they're interested in going to culinary school. Yeah. Go work in kitchens.
Yeah.
I realize your passion and your skill for it, and then go to culinary school. And the biggest thing that you pointed out is what you're paying for isn't necessarily the exposure to the food.
No.
It's the network.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's, again, you got to realize that I was much older when I did this. Now, if you're an 18, 19, 17-year-old don't go to culinary school. Spend those first 4 or 5 years working. Find somebody who can teach you stuff, can teach you the basic skills. Find a good chef. Go spend time in the kitchen. Learn what it is to be in the kitchen. And then if you decide you want to go to culinary school afterwards, do, but don't start in the culinary school and come out expecting that you're going to be somebody, because that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you very much. So you're avoiding the colds, and somehow you find yourself in Boulder, Colorado.
Yes. It's, again, a long story. So part of the culinary program was a 3-month externship. You had to go work somewhere.
Got it.
And so I was looking at places I could go work at, and I was dating a young lady at that time whose family was from Denver, Colorado. And they said and there was an opportunity to work at the Brown Palace Hotel in Denver, which is an old historic hotel, and I'd never done any hotel work. And so I was like, if you come here, you can just, we've got the basement apartment. We don't use it. You can stay for free.
Is that the hotel or
no? My friend's
girlfriend's parents?
Not parents. Her sister and my brother-in-law. And so
I was gonna say trusting parents.
Yeah. No. So that was like, okay. I mean, free rent. Yeah.
There you go.
And I know these people, and I like this girl, and so that was.
There you go.
And so I went to work there, but then also, I was working in a hotel, and I had never worked in a hotel, and I wanted to do, I liked independent restaurants, and so I got a job in a restaurant in Boulder, working, 3 nights a week.
How long were you at the hotel before leaving, going to Boulder?
I had to finish my externship. That was 3.5, 4 months.
Okay.
And then then I spent time.
Any good lessons about doing that work that is worth paying for?
If you like that work, I think it's great work, right? It requires a lot more discipline and a lot more patience than I had at that point in my life. Hotel work can be very lucrative. It can be a lot of fun. but you have to have a mindset that I did not have, and I still don't have. I don't think.
What mindset do you need?
You have to be singularly focused on one thing.
What's
right? The job at hand, and like one task, right? I mean, again, hotel kitchens are like a bureaucracy, right?
Drink the Kool-Aid or get off the bus,
if you will. The hotline does the hotline stuff, and the pastry department does pastry stuff, and so it's not. There is not a lot of room to kind of wander if you.
Creativeness and stuff like that.
I mean, you can certainly be creative as the creativeness in hotel in kitchens, and this might be different now. Again, we're talking 25 years ago. It comes as you get further up the chain.
Yeah,
right.
Whatever that creative outlet has to be able to scale to feed hundreds, if not thousands of people. Yeah. So that's easier said than done. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so you find yourself working in independent restaurants in Boulder.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
I think 5 months.
Okay. What made you come back?
The winter. I mean, pretty clear. Winter, rocky relationship. Both of those. I mean, I started, realizing that this was not the place I wanted to be. I was just not happy with. While I enjoyed the restaurant, I was just not happy with the place, and just. I wanted to be, I wanted to come home.
The cold makes everything fragile.
Yeah.
So you come home. Home at this point is
Oxford, Mississippi. Yeah.
Did you have a plan to come back, or how did you find yourself back at the grocery?
Well, I mean, that was why I came back, because I mean, the other thing that I'd realized while I was out there, when I had been in Miami, is that, and seeing other restaurants that I thought very highly of, that City Grocery and what John were doing was no different than what these people were doing. It just happened to be in Oxford, Mississippi. So quickly realized that I didn't need to be, to be working at a really good restaurant. I didn't need to be in a big city. There was one in the town I was in already. And it was a restaurant that I could see was making a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, good for you for getting out, because you don't know until you know.
Right.
Right. So you have to go scratch the itch.
Right.
You have to go see life beyond this.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes getting away to realize what you have.
Absolutely. And a lot of people ask me, it's like, you went to cooking school in Miami and you went there, and why'd you go back to Mississippi? And it's like, only you could, and then people would come here and, they would go eat at City Grocery, or, okay. That's what makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think you would have had the same success if you stayed in Miami?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I again, in fact, fallen in with the right people, it's very likely, or, I might have gone into work in, one of the many hotels in Miami and sort of been on that circuit, and, I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I only know you from the past 41 minutes that we've been recording.
Right.
So, but what I've seen is that you can be more successful getting out of the big cities, going to the big cities to learn and to get a new, like a reference point of what's possible, a reference point of what it's like to cook in that high end type market. Mm-hmm. But if you take that level of operating, that level of cooking, and you take it to a smaller market, you can be far more successful, as a pattern I've seen.
Certainly. Certainly. I mean, also there's something to be said about coming home or working in an environment that you are comfortable with, right? Because that has a lot to do with success, right? I mean, if you're constantly struggling to survive, I mean, and not everybody's made for living in New York or San Francisco or whatever, and not everybody, just because whatever food it is that is hot at the moment in the big cities is what you want to cook, doesn't mean that you're going to be happy doing it. Right. I mean, sometimes cooking the food that you want to cook is what makes you happy, and when you're happy, you're more likely to be successful.
What made you happy about Mississippi?
The way people treated me in Oxford. That was certainly one of the major reasons I came back. I mean, think about it. It's like, why would you want to be in Mississippi as an immigrant brown person? I mean, last place on earth people would think you would want to be, but Oxford has been very good to me.
How did they treat you?
Like I belonged, and that's that's important.
How'd that make you feel?
Made me feel like I belonged. Made me feel
Yeah.
like this is home,
Yeah.
right? So that's hence I am from here. So
It's the power of just good culture, right?
Right.
And if you're listening to this and you have people working for you, are you making them feel like they're home? Are you making them feel welcome? Are you making them feel like they could go anywhere and come back and be home again?
That's the key, right? I mean, that's the key, and that's working in that kitchen. As I said, earlier, is I fell in with the right people, right? I mean, I could have easily been in the kitchen where I was working with a bunch of jackasses who were goofing off and didn't have patience for me and didn't want, and then I would have had a terrible experience and I would have moved on and done something else. Okay. But that didn't happen. So,
so take me through the evolution, because basically you're at City Grocery from the 19. What do I have my notes? Was it 97? And
yes.
Then you moved around a little bit, but
right.
You came back in 2001. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then from 2001 to 2009.
Yep.
So for 8 years, you're basically working at City Grocery, climbing the ladder.
Correct.
How did you grow as a professional during this time?
I think the progression was natural. I mean, it was just, knowing the kitchen, knowing the place, knowing what was required. At the same time, not being shy or afraid of talking to John about new ideas, new flavors, new concepts. I mean, and not new concept as in, hey, let's change how we do our service, but as flavors or how we plate up something, or start focusing more and more on. And again, this was John. You got to realize that John is also growing and learning. So
I was curious. That was where my mind was going, because would you call him a mentor or like a peer? Because
he's a mentor. I mean, clearly. I mean, he and I are the same age, but it's clearly because he had been in this business a lot longer than I had before.
So he must have been young when you were working there.
Yeah, I mean, he opened City Grocery when he was 27.
Okay,
right.
And you were right around 25.
Yeah,
when you were working there.
Right.
So only a couple years difference.
Right.
Yeah. What was it like working for John then? Like, how was he transformed as a leader?
I mean, it was fun to watch. I mean, he was a little bit mercurial, like all 27-year-olds can be. I mean, and again, this was his restaurant. It's his dream.
Mid 20 to late 20-year-olds have this little thing called ego.
I mean, don't we all? I mean, I still do. I'm almost 60 and I still
Definitely
do.
Guilty, right? Yeah.
But also, this was, realizing that, this is something he's worked very hard for. This is his dream, his vision, his, it's his baby. And so, yes, there are some things that he's going to take very personally. I mean, and it's not, but then just be able to talk, right? And then the good thing is, part of the reason might be because we were the same age. I mean, I wasn't intimidated. I mean, I was like, okay, talk to me or explain to me why you want to do it this way.
You've been working with John for almost 30 years.
Yes.
So what I'm curious about, take me through the evolution of your partnership, how you worked together when you were both young men, still getting to know each other, to where you are today. Are you a partner in Snackbar? Or
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So through the evolution of being, co-chefs to partners in business.
I don't know how to really describe it, because it's been, it's something that we've done. It's been so long that we've spent so much time together, and it's really hard to describe how it happened. I mean, it just happened, and part of it might just be because I just stuck around. I wouldn't leave.
Would you say you have a successful partnership?
I think so. I mean, I'm still here, so right. I must be doing something right.
So if you could distill what it is about your partnership, your relationship as business partners,
right.
Evolving as co-chefs to business partners, boss, mentee, mentor, what is it about your relationship that is healthy that we can emulate?
I think we can go all the way back to where we started, and it's about respect, right? It's about respecting what each of us is able to do, also respecting what each of us knows, and from where I'm sitting, respecting that he brought this restaurant and this restaurant group into being, and found a way to involve me in it, right? So there's that on his part. It's respect, recognizing that I am a valuable asset, that I have something to bring that is important, enough respect to trust me to, hand me the keys and say, here, go run with it. Yeah.
Was Snackbar the second restaurant he opened?
Actually the fourth.
The fourth.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess take me through the evolution of your relationship with the restaurant group.
Sure.
When did he start saying maybe someday you'll be a partner in one of my restaurants?
No, it's from the very beginning. So I'd watch it from the very beginning. So City Grocery, the second restaurant that opened in the City Grocery restaurant group was Ajax Diner, which is on the square. And it was basically like, okay, you guys have been with me for a while. That was the guy who was the bar manager, and the young lady who had been the first chef de cuisine. Is like, okay, we've gotten young people who are sort of chomping at the bit to move up. You guys have done, here's the space available. Let's open a restaurant. You guys go take over that restaurant. And the same thing happened with, so basically growing from within. Once you get to a point where, somebody's been with you long enough, and, they're comfortable enough to offer them, it's like, here's another concept.
Yeah.
This is what I've been thinking about. You've been with me long enough. Is this something you were interested in?
When did Ajax open?
Ajax was City Grocery 2090. Sorry, City Grocery was 92. Ajax 1997, and then John sold it to Randy and Amy, maybe 5 years after that. So they were no longer partners.
And Randy and Amy came up through
City Grocery.
I love that.
Yeah,
they were willing to do that. So when did City Grocery open?
1992.
92. So you came in early on, and then
Yes.
you left and you came back. So you're there around the third year. They were in business, left for 2 years, came back in 97.
Correct.
What was the third restaurant to open?
Third restaurant was Bourré. Or was it? No, before Bourré, it was a restaurant that opened and then changed hands. It was a place called, initially it was called Nacho Mama's. It was a from scratch sort of Mexican American concept.
It was a from scratch nachos.
Yeah, well, Mexican American, great burritos and that kind of stuff.
What year was that?
That would have been, I'm thinking 98, 97, 98.
Got it. Sorry, keep going with your train of
thought. But Nacho Mama's had been, open for about a year and a half, and directly across the street used to be a Pizza Inn or a Pizza Den or something like that. A Mexican restaurant opened, and John saw the writing on the wall, and like, we can't compete with that. And so Nacho Mama then changed colors and became sort of a Greekish restaurant called Kalo, sort of modeled after many of the Greek diners across the South. And then that got sold.
2000.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it would have changed, rebranded around 2000. If it had a year and a half run, you started in 98.
Right. So yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Sounds about right. I mean, but somewhere between 97 and 2000, this is all happening. The next restaurant to open is Bourré, which was in 2002, 10 years after City Grocery. Again, moving folks from City Grocery to go open that restaurant, and it's still going. Then Big Bad Breakfast next door, which was in 98, and then 2008, and then Snackbar in 2009.
All right, and then today, looking at the City Grocery website, it's City Grocery, Snackbar, Oxford Boar. Or am I saying that right?
Bourré.
Thank you. And Big Bad Breakfast, which is
correct.
Next door. So 4 restaurants.
Yeah.
Any other concepts that have come and gone that we haven't?
Couple. Yeah. So there was Lamar Lounge, which was a whole hog barbecue place that for some reason we couldn't give barbecue away. We thought there would be lines out the door, and it was a fantastic restaurant doing all whole hogs, heritage hogs.
Sounds amazing.
It was great.
I'm sure it was a beast of a operation of training those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being
there
all
day,
night.
All night.
It was and it was good, but it just wasn't something people were ready for. So
yeah, I hear you. So give me an idea of how these restaurants work. Did all the chefs collaborate on all the different concepts? Would you stay in your lanes, or like how? Give me an idea of the culture.
It changes, right? I mean, it's so there are times when now I'm the oldest one still standing, right? I mean, you got a lot of young folks running kitchens and but we all talk, and we exchange ideas. And then again, Oxford's a small town, so we're constantly running into each other and spending time together. And most of us, at one time or another, work together, right? In this kitchen now. I mean, now folks are coming out of this kitchen, going on to open another restaurant or taking over a lead position somewhere else. Not necessarily just City Grocery anymore, right? So we have all spend time in kitchens together. And so we do. But again, I'm now sort of the old man, so the young folks aren't going to necessarily come to me if they if they have questions. They will, some.
Take me to 2009.
Yeah.
Leading into 2009, leading into Snackbar coming into existence.
Right.
When did this opportunity first come across your radar?
So Big Bad Breakfast opened in 2008 next door, and this space we're sitting in used to be sort of a gourmet-ish grocery store. And it was going out of business, and so the landlords came to us and said, hey, or they actually came to John and said, hey, would you be interested in, you got a restaurant next door, you want more space, you want to expand the restaurant. And so John came and looked at the space, and then immediately came and got me and said, hey, what do you think about this space? And I wasn't sure, what he meant by that. And then, we left, and then we met in the evening at City Grocery. We were having a drink at the bar upstairs, and he's like, you and I have always talked about doing this neighborhood brasserie kind of a place, what do you think about that location? I think that'd be a perfect location, right? It's not the square. There's a beautiful neighborhood across the street. There's a beautiful neighborhood behind us.
Ample parking.
Great parking. Yeah. So you already have Big Bad Breakfast, which meant we had a kitchen that sat idle at night. So you wouldn't have to build a new kitchen.
That's a big cost.
Yeah. Right? So we just built this space out. And
what was in the space before you moved your restaurant in here?
It was some sort of a grocery store deal. Yeah.
Was it two-tier like this before?
No. This design came out of John's head.
I love this space.
Yes,
it's beautiful. Yeah. Space. As soon as I walked in, I was like, I could have a drink here for sure. I love the energy. So take me more into the vision of what you're trying to create, the brasserie. Yeah, so
it's sort of a classic French brasserie. It's a neighborhood restaurant anchored by the oyster bar. Nobody in town. It's still not. Nobody's doing fresh oysters. We're getting fresh oysters 3 times a week. A nice long bar, a community table that sort of forces people to have a conversation. No TVs. That TV that's on that bar, we only have one. Was not there the first year. Finally, we gave in, because people would come in and
Ole Miss,
we gotta watch football. And I was like, crap. Okay, yes, you're right.
Yeah. So when you're in a community that's so driven by sports, and it is the community. Like, where would the city be without the Ole Miss?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, what were the challenges for you, if anything, during the early years of going from? Did you have the title of executive chef before this location?
I mean, I really still don't have. I mean, titles are we're a small restaurant group, and you can walk around throwing titles around. I mean, I'm a chef, and I in the grand scheme of things, I'm just an old cook, right? I just happen to have been around long enough to know a few things more than some of the younger folks, and then they'll know more than I do, and then they'll have a title. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was made chef de cuisine, if you will, if you want to use a title here.
Here being
at Snackbar.
Snackbar.
And given sort of, the first year John and I worked together, we co-wrote menus. The second year I wrote 80% of the menu. We were still sort of some input. Third year he was like, you know what, you don't need me. You got this. And, so.
Now's a good time to take our second break to thank our sponsors. When we come back, I want to unpackage, because were you a partner at this point in the business?
No.
Okay. We'll start talking about the first time being, partner in a
Sure.
restaurant.
Yeah.
We have to interrupt today's episode to let you know that every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Restaurant Systems Pro CEO Fred Langley is going live to teach you everything you need to know to run a profitable restaurant from soup to nuts. All you got to do is click the link below. We're back, and okay, so you're a first-time owner. Take me through the struggles of being a first-time owner. So it would have been probably 2011, 2012 when John propositioned you?
It's a little bit later than that. I think 16 or 17, maybe. I mean, again, the good thing about this was we were partners. So, he was always around. So while I'd been running in the general manager, we had been running the restaurant, and we were here, sort of on the ground as John was, opening big bad breakfasts across the country and sort of focusing on that. He was still very much involved, so it was easy to kind of lean into him when things came up.
So you said opening big bad breakfasts across the country. How many are there?
Number 20 just opened this week.
Holy cow, I did not realize that. So you guys all together, 4 concepts today, and then it would be 26 total locations?
So the Big Bed Breakfast outside of Oxford is a separate entity. It's a different partnership for John.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it similar in the way that it's branded and it operates, or is it like a franchise?
It's a small franchise, but again, you should talk to him about that.
I'll bookmark
I don't
that
want to. Yeah.
That's his lane. Got it. Okay. So take back to your struggles of being a first time.
Right. So
owner.
I mean,
how did things change for you?
Now paying attention to, oh shit, I got to call the plumber, or, it's like, it was always easy to kind of, while we were here and taking care of things, you always had that sort of blanket of, if things weren't going or getting done in a manner we thought should get done, or you could always get on the phone and like, hey, John, will you call somebody?
Right. So it's this idea of staying in your lanes, right?
Right.
So prior to being an owner, your lane was the kitchen and leadership, right? But post 2007, is that so? Was he basically getting to the point where he was looking to expand other projects and was looking to offload some of his responsibility?
Offload and also, give us more responsibilities because, again, I mean, he was going to be, very aware, very conscious that he would be spending some time on the road with opening this, with Big Bad Breakfast. And so needed folks here ready to take over things that he was doing that, he's all sort of just, took for granted that he would do.
So those responsibilities that were new to you were things like managing the property, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. Keep going along that vein.
Yeah.
What was the biggest, other responsibilities that were new to you, and what were the biggest challenges for you?
I mean, so, one of the biggest ones, and I think this was a challenge whether you were in any sort of management position at all, was dealing with COVID, right?
Oh.
It came.
Yeah. Only 3 years, 4 years as an owner, you get smacked across the face with that.
Yeah, and we, and we're, again, I mean, John is here, he's available, but, it's like we have to make tough decisions. We don't know if the restaurant will be open. We knew we had to close. We closed. We didn't know when we could open. It was, everything was changing every day, right? I mean, there was, then they would say things like, well, you can open at 25% capacity, but you can't have anybody at the bar. And like, well, at 25% capacity, we can't make any money.
We're losing money at
that rate. No bar business. How the hell, how do we make that work? But then said, well, you could open a bar, but nobody can sit at the bar, and then, you can have 50% but each you got to have a partition between each table. It's like, well, how do we make that work in this place, right? Things like that. I mean, so that's, I mean, again, not only that, but how do we keep ourselves and our staff safe, right? That was like everything else becomes irrelevant at that part, right? Especially when you're watching, friends and family suffer, and we lost friends and family. I was like, this is real. This is very serious. My wife's a nurse, so seeing her come home from work every day, and the level of stress, and
trying to balance the compassion with the reality of what's happening, and also I want to get back to business. I want to get things open again. Yeah,
because we got to figure something out, right? Because the mortgage didn't go away, the rent didn't go away. So
we know how that played out.
Right.
Eventually, things opened back up. When you opened back up, was your business different thereafter?
Yes.
How so?
In many ways, right? I mean, we had to. First, it was many good things came out of that. I mean, one of that was we got closer as a group, because people that worked for us realized that we had their back, and we helped out, and we made a decision, when we closed, John made a decision, and we talked to us like, look, we've got some money in the bank. We don't know when we're opening. Let's just write everybody a check for $500, every employee. And at least they'll
have a week or so to
figure out what's going on. And then we turned into like, okay, let's just turn into a commissary kitchen, right? We got people, we have food, so if people want to come work, let's just feed whoever needs food, right? Because I mean, they stopped all the school programs, so people that were depending on food at school, they didn't have anywhere to go. People, grocery shelves were empty. Well, we could still get stuff through our purveyors.
Right.
So, we had milk, we could get rice, we could get beans, we could get toilet paper.
Right.
So we're like, hey, we will turn into sort of your drive-through. You call us, hey, we need a gallon of milk. We'll, put tables out there and with a number, and you just drive through and pick it up.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll feed anybody that, we started making lunches. At 12:30, we'll put lunch out, bag lunches.
I think it's worth bringing to the conversation, too, that this all happened off the heels of you getting recognized by the James Beard House for Best Chef South in 2019.
Yes.
So this is when your career is supposed to take off, right? Not that it hasn't at this point.
Right.
You're a partner in a restaurant. You're doing well. It's a busy restaurant.
Yeah.
But this is where really, where all your hard work is, where you got
I mean, this is where I'm supposed to leave Oxford and, move to New York and, be
this
famous.
This is where the margins start to grow, right? And instead, you're facing, you might not own a restaurant. Yeah. You go from, I made it to, now people are, when they're in Oxford, Mississippi, they know that they have to come here because of the national acclaim.
Right.
To, I might go out of business.
Right.
How did that make you feel?
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, again, I mean, it's had its its ups and downs. I mean, of course, the bad part are very obvious. I mean, it's rough, it's tough, it's very stressful. It's not good for my health. But at the same time, it's like, hey, that's reality. I mean, people have a lot less than you do.
Yeah.
There are a lot less choices for many people, and they're in communities where they're not recovering. You're at least in a community where everybody's rallying around you to make it happen.
Right.
So, there was that.
Right.
So
that's really important. Are you familiar with the book The Power of Now?
I am not.
Okay.
But I will make a note of it.
I'm listening to it right now while I'm driving across the country.
Okay.
And it's just powerful, this idea of there is no past. There is no future. There is only now.
Yeah.
And now is the only thing that's real.
Right.
Anything in the past you have no control over.
Right.
Right. Anything in the future you can work towards that.
But again, you don't.
It will only be real
when you get there.
In the now of the future.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So all you can do is all you can do right now.
Correct.
And all you have is all you have right now.
Yeah. Well, that's the teaching, the essential teaching of the Gita, by the way. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And just whenever it gets as bad as it gets, the best thing you can do is just look at where you are now relative to where you were, and
Yeah.
how bad it could be relative to
Sure.
where you are now.
Yeah.
So it's just focusing on what you do have control over.
Right.
And there's peace in that.
Yeah. There is, and I mean, there's also some stress in that. But
Oh
yes.
yeah, for sure. But just knowing, like, just choosing not to let that stress, because that's an emotion, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just
yeah.
not that
Right.
overwhelm you.
Yeah.
So take me to where you are today. Paint a picture of where Snackbar is today and where you are today. You also wrote a cookbook. I don't want to skip over that.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, part of the free time, sort of forced free time allowed me time to write a cookbook. I mean, that was fun. It was a fun project, and there were some stories I wanted to tell, and there was a time to tell it. Again, going back to what we started talking about, sharing food and talking about food and eating, I think are important things. A way to bring folks together. So that was my hope, and still is that I mean, look, there are going to be all sorts of people coming here to eat, all different backgrounds, all different political views, and they could be sitting right next to each other at tables, and it doesn't, that's what we do. We provide an experience regardless of your prejudices, if you will. We try to, I certainly have my own, right? And there probably times when, given, a choice, I probably wouldn't be civil to somebody. But this forces me to be, right? I mean,
Right.
Because
There's a show going on.
right, sure,
right?
and livelihoods depend
Yeah.
on it, right? So that's a good sort of a point to remember that, this is. This is part of society, right? I mean, you have to be involved in what's happening around you, and you don't necessarily have to like everything that's happening.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really interesting point, and I was actually talking to Jeff Good. Do you know Jeff
I know
Good?
Jeff, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, great guy. And we both read the book *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind*.
Right.
Are you familiar with that book?
I am. I have not read it, but yes,
Super
it's sitting
awesome
on my shelf right
Get
now.
it on audio, man. Listen to it while you're in the kitchen. It's such a great book. But he talks about in that book that society used to be dependent on. I'm going to do my best to remember community, religion, and some government or something. Or no, community, religion. I think there might have been one other thing.
Okay.
Family. That's what it
All
was.
right. Yeah.
Family,
yeah.
community, religion. Today, it depends. It hinges on market, government, and like something else. Like, there's one other thing. But the point is, we literally live in a world where we don't need each other.
Yeah.
Where we become dependent on market and government.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing. I can't remember what it is. Let's just throw we're also beyond that, the compound on that. We all live in our own little silos.
Right.
We're all every day we're staring at our phones.
Mm-hmm.
We're in our echo chambers.
Yeah.
We're just not talking to people anymore.
Right.
We're more connected and disconnected than ever
Absolutely.
before.
Absolutely.
So as I'm saying this, what's going through your mind?
That there's certainly a need for more talking. I mean, that's pretty obvious from anybody that's paying any attention to what's going on in the world. Just a little bit of talking might go a long way. Also, as I was saying earlier, if we really take a deep breath and take a step back, we have a lot more things in common than we realize, and maybe we. If we can work on those common things together that benefit all of us, rather than the things that make us different and divide us, keep us from progressing in things that will benefit everybody.
Right, and I think that's why I went here. Is that I think the restaurant industry has the power. And my listeners are probably shaking. Here he goes again, because this is something I try to echo intentionally.
Right.
That my mission with this podcast is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant
Right.
industry. And also trying to shake the restaurant owner to wake up and realize that they have the ability to bring people together.
Sure.
And to create space
Yeah.
where we go back to the way we were 10,000 years ago, where we were forced to have conversation and
Yeah.
talk. Right. And to really, to your point, take your biases, put them aside, and just serve the person across the table,
Exactly.
regardless of their background,
Right.
regardless of
and
their
the same
beliefs.
thing, and from their end, it's like, you may not like my politics, but you're still going to come in here and you're still going to eat
Yeah.
and have a good time, and we're going to make sure you have a good time, and that's so it's possible, right?
Yeah, for sure. During break, you mentioned that you said I asked you if there's anything you really want to make sure came out of today's conversation. You said that you would love to talk about teamwork.
Right.
Paint the picture of how your business is running today. How does it go? Like, how does it run?
And this is not just any my business or anybody else's business. I mean, it's if you want to get things done, it's really hard to get it done by yourself, right? I mean, it's it is, especially if you have a sort of a place that employs multiple people. If you want everybody to work towards the same goal, then teamwork becomes absolutely essential, right? I mean, you have to understand people's abilities as well as their limitations, right? Don't put somebody in a position they're going to fail, right? I mean, it's like, don't throw somebody on a saute station if you know they don't know how to saute, and then expect results,
Right.
And so that's so then what is my job in that situation? It's like, okay, you can saute, so you jump on saute, let the other person do something else that they're capable of doing until they're ready, right? And so be willing to step in anywhere you're needed,
Right.
and that applies across the board for everybody, right? Like, just because you're working a station or just because you have a job doesn't mean that you shouldn't have an eye out for the next person.
Right. Like, you gotta know when to step in and cover someone's ass if they're in the weeds, or if
Right.
they're having an off day, or maybe you don't know
Sure.
what's going on at home.
Yeah,
Maybe their
that's
head's
not,
not
and
in.
it's not necessarily just about being in the weeds. It's just about, like, hey, let's push through this. I'm going to help you here because in 6 minutes it's going to turn around and I'm going to need a hand, and you can
Yeah.
give me a hand. And
Leading into this, I think you said something really special, and it's something that reminds me of the last book that I was just reading, 10x is easier than 2x.
Okay.
And as a leader, as an owner, your job is about finding the right who's, right, the right people,
Right.
finding the right people and then putting them in the right seat
Right.
on your bus, or whatever the
Sure.
expression is, the good to great
Yeah.
expression, Jim Collins. So it's your job to pay attention to who you're bringing on,
Yeah.
to recognize their unique ability,
Yeah.
their strength, and to play to it.
Sure.
So often we just hire people with a pulse and we say, do this job,
Right.
without ever taking the time to find out if that's the job they should be doing.
Yeah, and then and look, let's be honest, right? I mean, in this day and age, in this world, where we're struggling with finding employees, I mean, I will hire anybody with a pulse, but I also know that everybody has some ability,
Right.
right? I mean, if I hadn't gotten a job, when I was looking for one, somebody looked at me like, you got no experience in restaurants. I mean, you're some a nerd out of flunky out of college. What are you doing here? And then I wouldn't have had that job, and then we wouldn't be here. So there is potential, right? I mean, if you're willing to work and learn, then the sky's the limit. I mean, if that's to me, that's important, and it should be to everybody. It's like, if somebody's walking in your door and say, "Hey, I want to work, teach me," then it becomes your responsibility to mold them into something.
Yeah. You bring something up. So I recently had Brett Oliverio on the show from Sup Dogs, which is rated one of the best college bars in the country.
Okay.
3 years in a row by Barstool Sports. And I was like, Greenville, North Carolina, ECU, Eastern Carolina University,
Right.
college town. Like, it must be so easy for you to find employees. And he was like, not like it used to be.
No, it's not.
In Ole Miss, right here in town,
Yeah.
Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Have you found, because you've been hiring for probably 10, 15 years now, close to that at least?
Oh, yeah.
More than that.
Yeah.
So is it getting harder even in a college town?
Absolutely.
What do you think's changing about the college employee where they don't want to work?
I mean, I don't really know because I don't really spend time with people that age other than at work.
What have you observed?
What I've observed is, I mean, especially in this town, you have a lot of kids who come from backgrounds where they don't need a job. So that's one, which is amazing. Good for you. You don't need a job. That's great.
Their parents are spending big money to go get an education. I don't want you being distracted by a job.
Which is
go get
great.
AIDS. Yeah.
Two, I think there's this disconnect. Sometimes people will apply for a job and then come in and it's like, but then have sort of all these conditions of when they can work and cannot work. It's like, oh, I got this, that, the other. So it's the job is almost sort of like afterthought. So there's that. Then there is the notion that this work is too hard. I don't want to do anything actually manual that's going to require me to be standing for a period of time. So it takes a special breed of people to work in the kitchen or in a restaurant, and I guess it's cyclical. Maybe that breed will come back, but right now it's just the folks just aren't there.
Yeah, where do you think we're headed? In terms of
as a country.
Well, yeah, I mean the format of the show is very simple. It's
right.
Who are you? How'd you get here? Where are you today?
Right.
How have you evolved during this time?
Yes.
Right. Where are we going?
Yeah.
And I think that where we going is, I think we can get enough people like you share.
Sure.
What we can go to an intentional place.
Right. I mean, I don't know. In general, I'm optimistic. I mean, I have faith in humanity that we will correct our course.
So you think that there is a correction that needs to be made?
Absolutely, 100%. If we don't see that, we've got big problems.
So there's change that needs to happen.
Yes.
What change do you want to see in the world, and how does the restaurant industry influence?
Right. I mean, one of the changes. I mean, most important thing is remembering history. I don't know where and when we just sort of decided that wasn't important. And therefore we, are making mistakes that people have made before, and we expect a different outcome. I don't know, if that will happen.
What specific things are you talking about that you don't want to see happening in?
I mean, we just have to look at the world around us, right? I mean, when one looks around and sees a lot of conflict, and we've been down this path before. We as humans, and not so far, distant part in our history, and it didn't end well, and it's not going to end well if we continue down that path.
Yeah, especially if all we have to do in the future is push a button.
Right. So there's that. This notion of othering people, right? I mean, we live. The world is, as you said, it's a smaller and smaller world. We have more and more information, and yet the chasm between us is bigger and bigger. So we have this technology that has made the world smaller, where we can know people better, but we're not using it to get to know people, right? I don't know what we're doing with it, but it's certainly not.
Sorry, I don't want to add. This is your time. I have thoughts, but it's not my time to share information. Time to listen.
So make better use of the technology we have to improve how to learn about people. To learn about those around us. Make an effort.
Use of the technology to make better use. So you being the collective listener, or you being the people that are responsible? That you're responsible.
No,
for?
the collective.
Us.
You, us.
Yeah.
One, whatever, however.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's happening right now with the tools that are at our disposal?
I hope so. I mean, certainly some people are trying, and then there are small segments of society that do that, but in general we have found a way to sort of look at what's happening around it, because we're looking at it on a machine. Somehow decided that it doesn't really affect us; it's only happening in the machine.
So whether machine you're talking about, like the internet, the computer,
whether it's the internet, whether
digital?
it's the one you're holding in your hand, whether it's a television, whether it's whatever it is that we are relying on, whatever source it is that we're relying on for information that's coming to us. we have figured out, in some way, we have convinced ourselves that it doesn't affect us. And the world is connected. Everything around us affects us.
So the technology we're holding in our hand doesn't affect us, or what's happening. What do you mean by that? Make me fully understand.
This. Say you read, whether it's a little 148 character message, X, Y, and Z happened.
Got it.
And you just kind of read it, and that's it. So you got that information, but we're not thinking about what that X, Y, and Z means for us.
Okay.
Right? It didn't just happen in a vacuum. It's not going to go away.
Yeah. Just because it only happened on our phone doesn't mean it didn't physically happen somewhere in the country or on the other side.
But and so it is going to have effects on your everyday life, whether you like it or not.
So
but we have figured. I mean, I don't know how we've done this. Of not understanding that events that happen around us affect what we do.
Right. It's all connected. Yeah. Whether you're talking about the environment and what's happening in the Amazon and how that affects rain in Russia or the oceans.
Any of it.
Throw this plastic away and it goes away out of sight, out of mind. But where is it going?
Yeah.
How is it how are these microplastics affecting us?
Yeah.
And then I think one thing that you're kind of alluding to, but you're being very polite and not trying to get too political, is the war that's happening in parts of the world.
Absolutely. And our role in it. We seem to think that we have nothing to do with it. And then by we, I mean the United States. We absolutely have, responsibilities.
Yeah. So if it's all connected,
right?
How do we tie that back to the restaurant industry? How does the restaurant industry have the power?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Yeah. Do you believe the restaurant industry has the power to change the world?
I believe so. Yeah. I believe not the restaurant industry. I believe people who feed people, right? And so that involves restaurants, obviously, but also involves other folks. And clearly, you have organizations that are out there on the front lines feeding people. They're out there when emergencies occur, when tragedies happen. There are folks who are getting out there, and some of them are famous and some of them are not famous. Some of them are just regular old people who realize that, hey, these people need help, and I have something I can share, so I'm going to go out there. And that's what we need more of, right? Big organizations will do what they do, and they'll gather a bunch of money, and they'll get their people out there. But it's the little folks that make the biggest difference to me, right? I mean, it's when the huge tornado happened in Kentucky, or when we had Katrina in New Orleans. Yeah, of course, the big organizations showed up, and then they did what they do. The Army showed up. But what made the biggest impact was those folks who was like in Indiana is like, hey, I'm going to give up my spring break, and I'm going to go down there and do whatever I can. That's the impact we need.
Think about the restaurant industry during the pandemic. I think you alluded to this earlier.
Right.
You had the ability to feed people. You had commissary kitchens.
Absolutely. And that's the same. That's what we can do, right? That's what we can do collectively. That's why, again, and I didn't want to mention, Jose Andres by name. Because, what his group is doing is amazing work, right? But he's not the only one. There are a lot of other folks doing the same work.
Right.
And the work those groups are doing doesn't happen without support from local folks.
Where's Jose based?
DC, I believe.
Oh,
right?
Man. I got to get him on the show.
Yeah.
He's on my
right.
crosshairs. But you think about the three largest industries in the world.
Right.
Government.
Yep.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Food service.
Yeah.
Do you think about the pandemic?
Yeah.
Was the government involved?
Well, they were
They're
involved.
Calling shots.
Yes.
Was the healthcare organization
by
involved?
default? Yeah.
Yeah. Was the restaurant industry involved?
100%.
Was it by default or by choice?
By choice. What?
Was the government involved? By default or by choice?
Government by default, right? Because the government did nothing to, they sort of, walked themselves into.
That's what they do, right? They call the shots. They control order. They control the I think healthcare. It's for profit in this country, right? But they're obligated to take care of the people that come in.
Yeah.
The restaurant industry was shut down.
Yeah. But we were still there.
But we chose
by choice.
By choice.
Yeah.
And I think that is a prime. This is the first time this thought's even coming into my mind.
Right.
But I think that's such a shining example of the power this industry has. Yeah. And I think that in that moment, like, we don't know our influence. And yeah, I mean, so if the restaurant industry is going to change the world, you said the people that serve food are going to do it. So kind of close that thought. Like, how is that going to happen? And if you said it and I missed it, I apologize.
No, I mean, again, I mean, this is a nebulous thought in my head. It's like, again, going back to eating and or sharing food, being a very important part of my life, right? I mean, and being the best memories of my life are around food. So the interactions with folks, when are you having the best time? When you're out celebrating, right? I mean, you're having a good time. If we somehow take that, sort of encapsulate that experience, like, look, you were able to do that. If you can do that for an hour and a half in a restaurant, why don't you try that? Take that experience of sharing, and instead of 4 people, make that a group of 6. Invite 2 other people. And that group of 6 then becomes group of 12. And, can we make a change that way? Right?
Getting people just talk and listen.
Right.
In a world that
bringing them together.
Right.
And again, I'm not naive enough to say, I mean, I'm not naive.
I love that idea.
Yeah, but I'm not naive enough to believe, like, food makes everything better. No, it doesn't. Food also,
But it has the power to bring people together.
And so that's a way to start. It's a... And again, I'm not convinced that that's the only way to have conversations, but it's a way to start conversations.
I think it's also important to realize too, and we got to start wrapping up. I want to respect your time. That people are inherently selfish by nature.
Yeah.
And they tend to don't do anything about something until there's something in it for them.
Right.
And I think that we're moving in a really positive direction right now because the more we learn about the food system, and what's broken about the food system. And the more we learn about how people did food 10,000 years ago and how we are going back to heritage grains and like all these different things. And like the less you mess with food, the better it is. Yeah. Better it tastes.
Sure.
The better it is for you. Yeah. And it's not just what you're eating, but it's how you're eating it, coming together, being around people. So if you look at like the biggest things people are interested in today, it's my health. Right. And it's my mental health, my physical health, my mental health. Yep. What are the 2 things that, the restaurant industry does? It can provide, it can be a part of the change to fix a broken food system.
Absolutely.
It can also bring people together in a world that's more fragmented and shattered than ever before. Yeah. So there's so much power here.
Absolutely. And that's and that's always been, which is why you think about it in even really little small towns where that diner in the morning is the meeting place, right? Everybody goes there. Everybody goes and has their coffee and eggs, and back in the day people used to read a newspaper and argue, but now it's whatever else. Now you could be your internet. I don't care.
But it's interesting as we go into the future. They're saying we're going to be needing to rely more on AI and automation and technology. So more and more people are going to have less purpose. As their jobs are going away. Right. I think the only place that's going to be waiting for these people with open arms is the restaurant industry. Right. And we put all of our energy into growing and feeding people, and that becomes our collective universal purpose. Right. Because that's always what it's been about. Yeah. Go back when we were in tribes. It was about hunting and gathering, cooking and feeding. Yeah. And
there are more and more people, so you are going to need more and more, ways to feed them.
I think that there's ways. Like it's so right there. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun, Chef Bhatt. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, man, thank you.
Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you a couple more questions. Yeah. The questions I ask all my guests before we say goodbye. What is one thing about your business, a value, a system, a process that makes you truly unstoppable?
Wow, the business or me?
You.
Me. Why? I don't know what makes me unstoppable.
Respect.
Respect is one. I mean, and ego is another one. I mean, I am like all people in this business. I have an ego, and I want people to see and appreciate what I do. So that makes
what is it that you do that you want people to see?
The food this restaurant puts out, or the way my folks work, what we do in this town. I want people to recognize that. The value of this place to this particular town
what
and
do
beyond.
to this town? How does this town value you? Or
Yeah.
in the way that you want to see your
I want to see this again. I want to see people to see this place as a place where everybody's welcome. We can all get together. We can all that you can walk in this door and be welcome. That's important. There should be places like that. So, just as this town welcomed me and City Grocery took me in, I want to make sure we're doing the same as folks come in the door and taking care of them.
I love it. Awesome. Yeah. The mission statement, again, I'm echoing it intentionally. The whole purpose of having a mission statement is to make sure people know why you exist. So we're here to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. If we're going to do that, it's going to be by transforming one person at a time. So if you have transformed in the 30 years you've been in this industry, who are you today versus the man you were when you got started?
Oh, I'm much older, maybe a little bit more cynical. I mean, but also very hopeful. When I was young, I was arrogant. I was less hopeful, and that's strange when you're young to not have hope. So I'm much more hopeful, and I'm certainly a lot more patient than I ever was.
I love that. This is the last question. You ready for it?
Sure.
If you got the news, you'll be leaving this world tomorrow.
Right.
All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure.
Right.
With the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Wow. Respect what you have.
1.
Do what you want to do when you have the chance to do it.
I love that, especially while listening to the book of The Power of Now.
And I guess if you love somebody, tell them.
Why?
Because why wait? I mean, what's the point of not telling them? Right.
Right.
I mean, they don't have to love you back, but,
A couple years ago, I started telling my dad I love him.
Yeah.
And as a tough city Italian Boston boy, it was awkward at first. But guess what? He started saying it back.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun talking to you today.
Man, it's a lot of fun.
So again, Robert St. John called you out.
Yes.
Who do you respect and admire in the industry?
There's so many. I mean, Chef Robert's one. I mean, John Kearns is another. You're already talking to him. Beyond here, Frank Stitt. I mean, my buddy Tim Hans is in Birmingham.
So Frank Stitt is in Jackson.
He's in Birmingham.
Oh, he's in Birmingham. He was on my radar. Robert St. John also called him out.
Right.
I think he, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of somebody who was in Mississippi had a recent recovering from surgery or something. I won't say the name. I don't think it was Frank.
I can't know.
Think about it. I would love to get him on the show.
Yeah.
So Frank, look out, man. I'm coming after you. What was the other name you mentioned?
Tim Hanses.
What's his story?
He's the child of Greek immigrants, grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, has a beautiful, beautiful restaurant in Birmingham called Johnny's.
Got it. Look out, I'm coming after you as well. And how can we connect? If we really enjoyed today's conversation, maybe we're looking for an opportunity in the restaurant industry, we want to come work with you.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just have questions about what you shared today and we want to follow up.
Sure. So, I mean, you can always send me a message on Instagram at KissMyBot1. Go to my website and then send me an email. It's www.kissmybot.com. That's KISSMYBHATT.com.
Chef Bhatt, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. Thank you so much. This is where I say there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Oh, man, thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.